Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are back with a special bonus episode because guess what today is, Sarah?
Jen, what is it?
Let me get my air horns.
That's right.
You requested them at the end of our last episode, so I had to show up.
I did request some sound effects.
It is our 5th birthday today. Wow. We have been doing this for 5 years. Our little project, our little side passion has now officially graduated pre-K. They're going off to first grade. Wait, 5th grade? When you're 5? Kindergarten. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. We're learning our ABCs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wild. So we are excited to celebrate the 5th birthday of this podcast. We will be doing some reflecting on the past year, but I think like 5 feels like a pretty significant milestone as well. So yeah, tell me your kind of thoughts, reflections on 5 years of this podcast.
Yeah, it's wild that it's been 5 whole years of doing this. And you know, I feel like we talk about this every birthday episode, but I'm going to talk about it again. When we were first considering doing this podcast, we didn't want to start something that we wouldn't be able to continue. You know, I hate it when somebody starts a podcast and I get involved and they're very sporadic in posting, or they start posting and then they stop and whatever. And I know life happens, but we didn't want to be that podcast. We wanted, if we were going to do this, we wanted to do it. And I don't know, maybe it's the really like skeptical part of me, but I didn't ever imagine that we'd make it to 5 years of podcasting.
Yeah.
It's just so wild to think back over the last 5 years. You know, both of our lives have changed so much and we've gone through so many different like life transitions, and yet this podcast has been this consistent thing that we do every single week, and we are still enjoying it, still having fun. We're meeting new people who also enjoy movies and connecting with other people about film, which is the whole point of doing this. So it's so cool to see how this has gone further and become something that I know that I never dreamed of. And I'm really grateful that our past selves did this. You know, I feel like this has enriched our lives so much.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what's next too. This is very exciting.
Yeah. It has been such an exciting journey. I you know, I think our first recording was in my apartment back when we were both living in Texas at the time. And I think we were in separate rooms, right? Recording through Skype.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out the platform and how to like set up a recording, how to, you know, structure a conversation. And we were such noobs. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were figuring it out, and it was so fun and exciting at the time. But I would never have imagined that 5 years later it's still just as, if not more exciting and more thrilling and more invigorating than we even dreamed that it would be at the time 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I really can't believe that our first review was Christopher Robin. Of all of the choices that we made.
That was our inaugural episode. But in a way, it's incredibly endearing to me because that was the root of our excitement for this, is just to have fun and joke around and be silly and be ridiculous. And that's been such a joy too. You know, like this was never an academic exercise for us, really. It was like we love just talking about movies, roasting movies, celebrating movies, and everything in between. And we have covered that full spectrum so many times on this on all these episodes. So It's been
Mm-hmm.
so fun. So it feels oddly fitting, you know, true to
It's
our
true. It's true.
strategic whimsy, the whimsy part of our roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we leaned right into the whimsy right off the
Oh
bat.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that.
We didn't blink an eye at it at all. It was like this makes sense. Yes, of course it's our first episode. The live action Winnie the Pooh remake. That seems like
Mm-hmm.
a great foray into the world of movies.
Yeah, it just felt right.
Oh
We
my
went with
goodness.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, this past year I think has been particularly exciting and a big shift that we've done in our branding and our kind of roots that we're planting with this podcast has really been aligned to this 5 year milestone, and that's something that as I was reflecting I thought was really noteworthy is that our relationship to the podcast has evolved and changed over time, and kind of the things that we value and that we want to hold as the core and the heart of this podcast has shifted as we've done it. And I think that's some of the cool parts around these nonlinear journeys. Like we could have never planned or have known that this idea around connection with each other and a celebration of films and the way that it opens up conversations would be so captivating to us until we just started, you know? And our focus, I think, in the first few years were really just around the strategic whimsy roots and our mission there, and really celebrating these passion projects and diving into those and creating space for those in our lives. And as we continue to pour into this passion of ours, we also uncovered new areas that were captivating and exciting that we felt like were really central, in a way more central now than we even would have known it to be when we first started 5 years ago. And that shift and that evolution is really exciting to see. And I think we really stepped into that a lot more in this past year, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even just the past few months, seeing
Yeah.
how we were so focused on strategic whimsy for so long, and it was so good. Uh, but
We needed that. Yeah. In those first few years,
yeah,
we needed that to be
yeah,
central. Hmm.
yeah. And then understanding that's not where we're going. It's so cool to be able to go on that journey, but also understand when you need to pivot and try something new and you need to change a direction, because what you have done, while good, can't sustain you for where you're going. And that's really the journey that we've gone on this year, going from Strategic Whimsy Experiment to Movies and Us. And it's kind of crazy. Like it's it's a celebratory thing, but it's also kind of this weird like letting go of what used to
Yeah.
be so that we can
Yeah.
now step into this new direction and this new way of talking about movies and focusing more on connecting with each other and the world around us rather than strategic whimsy. It's cool to see how this has evolved as we have evolved over time, and giving ourselves the space and the freedom to do that has been, I think, invaluable.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of kind of holding rigidly onto the thing that we started, we really allowed ourselves to pivot and focus and grow and evolve. And I think what's also been neat to think about is when we first started this 5 years ago, we didn't know what we didn't know. You know, like we wouldn't have
Yeah.
known that those conversations and those moments where we felt most excited and invigorated from certain episodes or guests that came or certain types of conversation, like that was the things that spoke to us more heavily. We just wouldn't have known. So this is, I think, such a beautiful example of sometimes you just pick a direction, start running in down that path, and those turns and shifts in the road will kind of open themselves up to you, and you can't really plan for them. We just had to pour into it and see where it took us, and the road has taken us into this really exciting new direction. And I think it's feels very in line with and resonant with the things that are important to us now with this podcast, which is feels right, feels very fitting. Movies and Us just feels like it perfectly captures the things that we love and have been excited by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just fun to be able to, we're just trying something and realizing what connects us, what fuels us, and doing more of that. It's just fun.
Yeah. 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 Running after the things that just make us more excited, make us feel
Yeah.
more alive, more invigorated, like that. That will be our guideposts through and through. And another thing happened this past year. We launched a second podcast, a
We
spinoff.
sure did.
That is a big thing. Sometimes I forget about how how big and exciting that is, and it's so exciting that it's aligned to this 5-year milestone as well. But wow, good job, us, And I think what's fun and exciting about that is one, seeing the content and the media that the world is consuming more of as well, but also like at the core of movies in us is this idea of connection with each other through storytelling and a place that everyone is welcome. But storytelling can be a 2 hour, now 3 hour, often feature length film. But there's also storytelling that is far more long form in the form of TV shows. And there are so many conversations that are opened up through that longer structure that we're excited to dive into and celebrate and create space for that as well. So TV and Us was launched this past year as well.
It's so crazy. I really think that having a podcast is like getting a tattoo or eating a potato chip.
Yes.
Like you really can't have just one. Uh, and so it's
I love
still
it.
wild to me that we have two whole podcasts. Uh, but again, like it just aligns to this idea of connection. Uh, and
Mhm.
also,
Mhm.
it's just super fun. There's a lot of really good TV shows out there, and so
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we're going to be able to do these deep dives into a TV show and go episode by episode. Because it's just a blast. So, if you're listening to this episode and you haven't yet followed TV and
Yes.
Us, please
Mhm.
search for and follow TV and Us in your podcast platform of choice. We're also on all of the social medias, so follow TV and Us Pod. But uh, it's similar to Movies and Us, but it's about TV shows, and we go episode by episode through a season of TV, and we have a new season of that coming up very soon, which is very
Mhm.
exciting. So make sure
Yes,
to stay
very
tuned for
soon.
that.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks. And
Mhm.
our first TV show and season of TV and Us has been around Succession, but just high quality, man, just really great, stellar, exquisite content. So, uh, yeah, that was really fun. I love that Movies and Us, or this podcast, started with Christopher Robin, and TV and Us entered the world with Succession, like night and day,
Yeah. Yeah.
night and day. So
Oh,
great.
they couldn't be more different, but
Right.
somehow it also all makes sense. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
me too. It's the best. It's the best. All right. Well, typically in our birthday episodes, we love to just reflect on the past year of the podcast, some of our favorite moments, some of our favorite conversations, our favorite episodes. So we are going to do that for today. And it's just, I think there's sometimes, I know you can probably relate to this, but you can be so in the weeds of executing and creating content that sometimes it's just refreshing to stop and reflect and celebrate the past year. I know that right before we were chatting about this episode, I was like, man, we've so much content, so much happened in the past year. I really am grateful for this opportunity to pause and reflect and think back to some of the great things that happened. So I'm excited to dive into this with you today.
Me too. And it's always so fun to see kind of which direction we go. Are we going to go like serious and profound, or are we going to be silly? And so that's always part of the fun of this is,
Yeah.
okay, what's the vibe for this birthday celebration? And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to find out.
What's the moments that we chose that somehow stood out to us or memorable? Yeah, that's the best. Before we dive into that, I'm curious your reflections on just the past year or the process of choosing. Some years for me, it is very clear and obvious. Like I immediately know what I'm going to choose. There's just one or two that like immediately stand out. Other years, I think back and all these moments come flooding back afterwards, and it's a little bit harder. So I'm curious what this process looked like for you this year.
Yeah, and initially I had my moment narrowed down to 2 episodes, and I just needed to like go back and listen and make sure that
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what I wanted. And then I thought that I had my favorite episode nailed down, but then as I was listening to it this morning, I realized that that actually wasn't the episode that I was thinking of, and I was thinking of a different episode.
Oh,
So what
I'm
I had in my
intrigued.
mind did not actually match the reality of what happened. So I had to kind of like flip around what I remembered as I was listening to the episode. So that was kind of fun this morning going, oh, my memory of these episodes is not as good as I thought that it was. So that was super fun. But thankfully, I had it narrowed down to a few. So I didn't have to go scouring too much. But yeah, it was fun to realize that my memory is not as good as I thought it was.
Now I'm intrigued what it actually was and what was the
Yes.
false false one. That'll be
Yeah.
good. Okay. Well, let's start off with our favorite episode from the past year. Sarah, I'm gonna have you share yours. I feel like this is a like buy one get one free because I'm gonna get the one that you actually chose and then the one that you thought, which is just actually fun.
Yes. So, initially, I was thinking about this episode for favorite moment. And then as
Oh,
I was listening to it, I was like, you know what? This whole conversation was so fun. And we both adored this movie. So this gives us an opportunity to talk about it again. And so that is Tar. Uh,
this is one of
we,
my candidates. Oh my goodness.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we loved this movie and had such a great time talking about it. And even in the course of our review, we talked about this movie for an hour and we barely scratched the surface because there's just so much to this film. And it was just fun to revisit it again through that episode.
This is such a great choice. I think that there's so many times in that episode where we were just like, this is just so good. This is just stellar filmmaking, incredible character study, great writing. Like we were gushing at each other for an hour about this movie. Oh my gosh, this is such a great choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's
what's
wonderful.
also fun about this is we genuinely were considering doing a bonus episode to revisit and just get to dive into the show again when we were doing some of our content planning like a month or two later. It was that good where we're just like, we just want to talk about this more. And that's always a great sign.
And honestly, I would still like to pitch us doing a Tar
Yes.
rewatch because I really
Yes.
want to watch it again and talk about it
Mm-hmm.
with you again because it is so
Yeah.
rich and densely packed that I think it deserves a follow-up. We watch a lot of good movies, but I feel like Tar is in another category, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun when there's an episode that we both feel so passionately and we just get to share in that together too. That's always just a great time, a really great time for us to just be giddy about great filmmaking together. And man, that kicked off such an incredible slew of movies as we entered that
Mm.
year's Oscar season as well.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah,
great
I
choice.
was I was scrolling through and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this chunk of time was seriously stacked with great movies." and I had to stop myself from like going down the rabbit trail and listening to a bunch of those other episodes because I know that those are also very fun and very rich as well. So I was like, no, just stick with Tar. You know that it's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Man. All I mean, so many of the aspects of and the components of filmmaking just come together in this beautiful symphony together in that movie. Like they are all working together to create the effectiveness of that film, and it's just a gem, just a gem. So good, great choice.
Thank you.
Wait, so what was the runner up?
So my what I initially thought was going to be my favorite episode was our review of Promising Young Woman with Nate and Pat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um I that was just such a fascinating conversation, and there was a portion in that conversation that I remembered incorrectly and is actually from our men episode, which we will talk
Oh,
about in a moment.
oh, okay.
But yeah, that was my first thought for favorite episode until I listened to our Tar episode and I was like, nope, I'm choosing Tar.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, sounds like that one will boomerang back in a hot second here.
Hmm.
My so I went with my gut for both of these categories this year. There's often a couple that will like spring to mind, and I go back and listen to them. In this case, I was like, these just stand out to me, so I'm going with it. When I think back to the past year, these came to mind immediately. So for favorite episode, I chose our A24 Gauntlet
Oh,
episode from
yes.
September of last year, which feels like forever ago, but um, I think it was just a fun concept. First of all, we were all excited about it, and we were all down to watch 4 A24 movies over the course of 1 week and really unpack them together. And I think it's a such a great example of kind of bringing people in, and this idea of movies opening up really interesting conversations. But one of the things that I also loved about that episode is we really dove into the expectations that each of us had for these types of genres. You know, that there's a lot of conversation on that episode around the artsy fartsy nature of some of these horror films, and why the contrarian of the group, Patrick, didn't resonate with some of that. But I think sometimes conversations just stop there, you know, like, oh, this worked for me, this didn't work for me. But it was fun to see the way that we were like, let's go deeper into why. And I think we uncovered some interesting things around the expectations that we have in films, the way that we watch movies, the idea of genre in general, and how that changes our perceptions of what a movie should or shouldn't do, or the way that an ending should or shouldn't be satisfying. And so I thought that was a lot of fun. We got to talk about 4 incredible, just gems of films, and it was a good time. It was a really good time. And there's some great hot takes that happened in that episode. So it was really fun, and I think it was exciting to also explore this new concept that we brought people in, and they were excited about it, and we were excited about it. So I just remember that being an exciting period of time, and it was a really good conversation as well.
Yeah, that was so fun. And to be able to take four very different movies all by very strong creative visionary directors and have a conversation about all of them all at once. And it was kind of cool to even see themes and similarities and the ways that these all bring something different and interesting to the table. And then, of course, for the three of us to gang up on Patrick because he was wrong is also just a good time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was really fun. I think usually with our reviews, we tend to focus on a single film, but to put them in conversation together in this gauntlet style format, and then sometimes, you know, like one of us is advocating passionately, but you know, in other cases, just like, yeah, you just saw that really differently, and why? Let's unpack that. Let's do a psychoanalysis of the way that you show up to movies, and what, you know, like
Yeah.
that was just
Yeah.
really exciting. And I think the willingness of our two guests, Patrick and Nate, to just go there and dive deep into that was really special too. So perfectly capturing the and us aspect of what we love about this podcast.
And showing how hot takes can lead to some really fun podcast
yes.
episodes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The stronger the passion, the more exciting the conversation.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
The best.
There was a lot of passion in that episode.
Yep. Okay. Now we're going to pivot and talk about our favorite moments. This is always really fun because, you know, in a year of 1 hour episodes of conversations about movies, there are thousands upon thousands of moments to choose from. So it's always fun to see which needle in the haystack you somehow have found and picked up and is the one that resonated with you. So, Sarah, what was your favorite moment? And after you share kind of a brief overview of it, we'll play the audio clip from that episode.
Yeah, at first, the moment that I was thinking of was when we were talking about men with Patrick and Nate. And I really just appreciated how the guys read the end of that movie so differently than you and I did. And so that was what I went into this episode searching for. But as I was searching, I found this moment when Patrick confesses his love for Michael Bay. And I just had to make that my favorite moment because it's kind of hilarious. And Nate is completely offended at the assertion, and it's perfect.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So we will play that moment right now.
I have something to share.
Oh,
and
boy.
It's going to piss Nate right off.
I think we just ran out of time, actually. So I want to thank everyone for having me.
I think that Alex Garland and Christopher Nolan need to take a course in Michael Bay's School of Simplicity. Because sometimes folks bite off way more than they can chew, and the viewing experience is lost. Like, for instance,
said that out loud.
You're right. I hope that both of you know I'm going to get like a text or a phone call in a week that's just like, you asshole, I haven't been able to face you for days because of what came out of your mouth at the end of that call.
This is so great. Someone needs to give the man a podium, a microphone. He's got a whole monologue that he could give for an hour, a whole sermon with his manifesto. Oh my gosh. So great.
It's true.
So great.
It's true. I love when we have Patrick and Nate on because Pat always has such hot takes. And then just to see Nate's reaction to all of them is entertainment in and of itself. Like, let me just pop some popcorn. I'm ready.
Yes. Yes. So calm, cool, collected, but let me absolutely deconstruct your argument. That's Nate's approach, and it's great. It's so great. What's even more fun is that whenever we record, we can see the facial expressions. We have their videos on, and the amount of face palming that's happening throughout these episodes, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fun.
That whole series from the A24 Gauntlet to the Men episode to House of Darkness to Promised Young Woman. What a journey we went on there. That was great.
We went on quite a journey. I wonder what our next movie journey we will go on with them will be.
We have to find where our hot takes and our passion areas are, and I'm sure we will uncover plenty of gems there.
That's
ripe ground. Let's just say that Patrick and Nate you will see on some content pretty soon on some of our channels. So those two personalities will definitely be back, and we love every bit of it.
Yep.
Great choice. Great choice.
Thank you.
I love that you stumbled upon this moment as well, you know, as you're listening back to this episode.
Yeah, no, I was going for like serious and thoughtful and all of that, and then I found this and went, oh nope, this is the one.
Amazing. Yeah, good choices. Okay, my favorite moment of choice. Again, okay, I went with my gut, popped out immediately when I was reflecting on this past year, and it is a moment from you, from episode 239.
No. Oh God,
The Banshees of Inisherin. And you
Justice for Jenny.
It's actually not that moment.
Okay.
But
that's
it's
literally
the one where
all I remember about that. That's all I have about Banshees. Is just me yelling justice for Jenny.
That, yes. And she makes a return appearance on the Oscars show.
She does. Oh, Jenny.
And you were very excited.
It was
very endearing. But it's a moment where you have about a minute and 30 seconds of talking about how you were so intrigued by Brendan Gleeson's character. And it is just it is such a perfect summary of who you are as a human being. You were puzzled by this dude, you were captivated, you were interested, and that was exciting to me because I was like, I did not feel the same way, but I am so intrigued to hear all of your thoughts about it. So we will play that clip next.
Not understanding the characters' motivations, like that was constantly a question that I had about like, why is Colm doing what he's doing? And even the attempts at explanation didn't really explain things. I was like, there's a lot of flaws in your logic. I'm not understanding this. And so I felt like, you know, for over an hour and a half, I was just sitting there trying to understand why this character was doing everything that he was doing. And because I couldn't understand him, then every decision that he made to me was really surprising. And I think for me, like, that was really exciting because I'm used to seeing characters that are complex or characters that don't make sense, but he was just so unusual to me, and I couldn't wrap my head around him, which kept me really interested in this movie and kept wanting to see what was going to happen next, so that maybe then I would be able to understand him. So I felt just as confused as everybody else in the town who was like, what is going on? And I still don't know what was going on with him. I'm still just as confused as I was while watching the movie.
You saw him as a puzzle.
I did. He was a puzzle, and I was trying to figure him out. I feel like I figured out everybody else but him, and that was just fun and interesting.
I love puzzles. Puzzles are so fun, and people watching is also fun. And so that whole movie, I was just puzzling over this dude who is making the weirdest decisions I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yes.
What a blast.
Your joy when you were like, he's a puzzle. But true. I also love that at the end of this like minute and a half long, like, he's very complex. I was trying to figure him out. And by the end of it, you're like, and I still don't get what his deal was.
Yeah.
So great. So
which
for
is
some reason,
so
that
interesting.
Moment stuck out to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about that again, I'm like, wow, why did that work for me? Because normally that would be like really frustrating. Man, I need to watch that movie again. It's so good.
But you had such joy with it, and I had such frustration with this character that I was like, tell me more. Please keep talking for longer than a minute and a half, because I need to know.
Yes. He's a puzzle. So we're so puzzling. Good. We're puzzling in Ireland. What more do you need?
Oh, it was so great. It was really great. That was a memorable moment for me. All right. A year of movies, a year of conversations, a year of life lived. Here we are, and we're looking ahead. Mm-hmm. This podcast has turned 5 years old, and we're in our 5th year of life. We're on to our next. Any thoughts as we look ahead? Or any thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, just wow. I'm so excited to see what's next. You know, we both loved Sui and everything that it was, and it was this really solid foundation for this podcast, and we learned so much in just doing Sui week after week and kind of growing this joy that we have about movies. But that wasn't going to be sustainable and wasn't going to be able to get us where we knew we wanted to go. And so now with Movies in Us and TV in Us, which is just crazy, we we're going somewhere, and we don't exactly know where, we don't know what it's going to look like, but this is something that is sustainable, that we can continue to grow and build for the future. And I'm so excited for the movies and the conversations and the guests that we're going to have in the coming year. And I can't wait to see what's next. But I know it's good and it's exciting, and I don't know. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. I share the same sentiment with you, which is that there feels like a shift and a change in season, which is exciting. And I feel like there's a foundation that has been built that we can now build upon and grow and evolve and see where the journey takes us. But there is kind of an inflection point, and we're excited for what we're set up for now, and I think the hopes and dreams that we have for this. So yeah, here's to the next season for this little podcast of ours. I love it. I love it. And we just want to thank everyone that has listened and been on this journey with us, and grown and evolved and seen the way that our passion areas and our mission with this has changed and grown. So we're excited that you've been along this journey with us. Lots more conversations, lots more movies, lots more roasts, lots more hot takes, all of the good things that we love. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for celebrating the 5 years of this podcast with us. We thank you for listening, and we're so excited for what's next. So as always, Movies in Us, our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. And that really is our core and our central identity with our space in this world of podcasting. This podcast really is about all of us and our shared stories, and we really want to emphasize and create space for the fact that everyone is welcome here. And so we're so glad that you're on this journey with us. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at @MoviesInUsPod, or email us at moviesinUspod@gmail.com. So as we head into the next year, we will be back next week with another review of our next movie, which is The Souvenir. We hope you have an amazing week. We'll see you soon, and we're excited for the journey ahead.